Okay, little quick video, tips and tricks for kayaking or rafting in cold water or a cold environment, especially in wet conditions. Uh, if you have to bail out of your boat, lose your boat, it floats away, whatever, you're stuck on shore, don't have much. Getting a fire started super important, as you know. Uh, a lot of people like to use something like this, which is just a little bit of magnesium. You scrape off like that, and then you got a starter side. You get it sparking. The idea being the magnesium burns super hot, so it gives you a better chance of getting some damp stuff lit than just like a match or whatever. Also, you can get hundreds of fires out of this as opposed to, a dozen out of some matches if you're lucky, or maybe a couple dozen out of a lighter. Problem with a lighter, obviously, being if you've been submerged or it's raining and this part's wet, good luck on getting it to work at all. It just they don't tend to strike at all when they're damp. By the time it dries out, you might be hypothermic. So something. So yeah, these little magnesium things are great. Obviously, this one is pretty big, pretty clunky. I guess you could carry this around, but I'd rather not. You can buy much smaller magnesium bars like this. This one had that striker strip on there. It just fell off, so just showing you on this one. One downside of these, if you're kayaking in salt water, or just if it gets a little old, they tend to get corrosion on them. I don't know if you can see that, but they tend to corrode up, and once they're corroded up, they're really hard to strike, for one, or scrape any metal off, and they also, that what you do scrape off won't burn, so you got to scrape through that really hard stuff, get down to the bare metal before you can get to some stuff that's going to burn for you, and that all takes time, wastes time. If you're already hypothermic and wet, need to get a fire going, not something you want to deal with. What you can do, obviously, if it's new, just go ahead and coat it. If it's not new, get something like a file or whatever. I mean, sandpaper, or even a good sharp rock, I guess, rough rock, and you can file that down. Once it's filed down and nice and shiny again, when you're down to new uncorroded metal, then I like to coat it with some wax, and crayons work great. It's basically just paraffin with some dye. Might as well use a bright color. That way, if you drop it in some rocks, or drop it in a bunch of leaves with cold hands, dark conditions, whatever else, you can find it quick and easy. Really, any color would work, though, I guess. Pretty simple. Just need to heat it up. Once you've got the bar warm and the wax warm, you can just start rubbing it on there. Give it some time. You can do a couple coats, let it cool off. You can do another coat on it, get it good and thick. Does it have to be thick? No. I mean, a little layer is all it's going to take to protect it from corrosion, but a little extra wax doesn't hurt. And the reason for that being, the wax is dual purpose. Obviously, it's coating to prevent the corrosion, which is maybe its primary focus. But in addition to that, since this is just paraffin, same thing that a candle's made out of, if you get a little bit of the wax, you can just take, once you've scraped some of this wax off, before you get down to the metal to scrape, that wax mixed in with a little bit of tinder is going to act as a candle in there. So if you have just a little bit of dry tinder, you get a little bit going, having that wax in there with the magnesium is going to get it lit, and then this wax is really going to help it keep going. So if you have damp wood, that's a great way to get a little heat in there, get that stuff dried out to get it burning. Super important. Do it right the first time. If you guys have read the book To Build a Fire, great book, short little story, shows how quickly things can go wrong without being able to get warm. It's going to be really difficult with cold hands. So in addition to coating the bar, the other thing that I found handy, a lot of these come with just a little striker like this, or a little scraper like this, which you use to scrape the magnesium off, and then you also are using that as your spark generator. that's great. Works super good in here in my garage where it's nice and warm. If you've had to swim to shore from wherever your boat sank, capsized, you know, got beat down the river and some rapids, whatever, your hands are going to be super cold being in that water, probably still cold once you get to the beach. You're not going to be able to hold on to something tiny like this. It sucks. You don't have that fine motor control. So I like something bigger. What I found works great is just an old, I guess it doesn't have to be old, you could buy a new one, but I'm cheap. Sawzall blade. Wood blade's great because it gives you a cutting edge. I guess you could sort of use the cutting edge if you need it to get a notch made in a branch to, you know, start getting some branches broke over or whatever, but not really its primary function. What I do like about it though is you can take and grind down a little section of it. Angle grinder, knife sharpener, I suppose. I just used a Dremel tool and sharpened a little bit of that down. And then with a little duct tape on this side, it gives you a really good hand size handle to hold on to, as opposed to that little tiny thing. So you can do this with pretty cold, dumb hands, and that gives you a good scraping edge to get that going. Obviously still carry a knife, like why wouldn't you? But this keeps you from having to use your knife blade to, you know, end up dulling up your knife blade just to get a little bit of scraping going for that magnesium block. And then the other neat thing with this, if you peel off this duct tape, obviously you got your blade, your saw blade on that side to use. But in addition to that, I don't know if you've seen this before, but I'll let it go. Duct tape, once you do get your little fire going with your wax and your tinder, you can get even over a little tiny flame, you can get your duct tape going, and this acts as one hell of a nice, hard to put out candle or, you know, wick, so you can go ahead and move around, try to get your little pile of fire going from some different angles, as opposed to just holding onto a little short match or having something that's going to burn out real quick. And it's actually fairly difficult to get out once you get it burning. So kind of a multi-function little tool there, using nothing other than, you know, the one little cheap block you bought, improving it with a little bit of wax, and then basically some free shit laying around your house. I do like to cut the point off the blades, just because I don't want something sharp hanging out in my life jacket. You know, that's a good way to get stabbed, I guess, or, you know, pop your boat or whatever else. But I do cut off the end and round it off. And in addition to that, I also do keep matches, just because I find that a lot easier to get it started than trying to necessarily just scrape the magnesium and use the striker that's on there. But you know, that, I guess the striker is a good backup for the matches, but getting the magnesium in there with the with your tinder really does help it get going if you're trying to get something wet lit off, even with matches. These just won't generate enough heat to get the damp stuff going if that's all you can work with is a bunch of damp crap. So I'll do a little test with it. You can see how it works. Okay, here's our little test. So I got my little pile of wet kindling, and I mean, this stuff is actually wet, and it's not just damp. It's been raining for the last 3 days here. I'm in South Central Alaska. I mean, it's typical of what you're going to find in a lot of areas in Alaska, especially along rivers. A lot of wet conditions. Scraped off my little pile, got some wax mixed in with a little bit of kindling I got there, and you know, wax is going to come off right as you're scraping the bar. I suppose you could add a little bit more if from a different part of the bar if you really wanted. And then this one, like I said, is missing the magnesium, or the flint, so I'm gonna use this one just as an example. But here's my get it going. And if this little pile doesn't want to keep burning, I've got my little piece of duct tape I can pull off the other side there. Just getting this lit. Now if I need to work on getting somewhere else lit on my little pile, I got another chance to do it, right? And yeah, that's really all there is to it. Like I said, my first step would be, instead of trying to do the flint, using the flint, I would just light this, get this little pile going with the magnesium in there, and then just get a waterproof match, strike it in there. And see, these are wax coated too. These are obviously kind of old. And then you can get that in on your magnesium. Get your wet, even though it's your wet stuff, with the extra wax added in there, or the duct tape, that's going to give you more of a chance of getting this stuff burning. Probably won't get it lit off this time since I've already used up the majority of the wax and whatnot, but do it right the first time and it'll take off just fine.